Hey guys, Rob here. Hope you're doing fantastic. Today I want to talk about something which I know a lot of you are struggling with, and that is execution and high performance when you're trying to run your business and trying to, be an entrepreneur and get all these things done. Now, I've seen a lot of top entrepreneurs, like their day-to-days and how they motivate themselves and how they stay disciplined and get more stuff done. And this can be from people like Grant Cardone to Tai Lopez to Sam Ovens. I've seen like a lot of people's different strategies for actually working through the day and getting more stuff done. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you what works for me from all of their principles combined, because the best thing for you to do is not actually just stick to one route, is to take what works for you. Because everyone's different, right? So let's break it down. I've broke this down into 4 sections, and I've put a few notes here, but I'm gonna largely kind of freestyle this for you. So we've got goal setting, managing oneself, discipline versus motivation, and routines. Now, I think all of these are very, very important, but let's start over here with goal setting. It's very, very important when you're executing and when you're trying to perform at a high level that you know where to actually get to. So there's a great book. I wonder if I've got it on my bookshelf here. Oh, here we go. We got it in. It's called Cybernetics, and it's by a guy called Maxwell Maltz. And basically this guy talks about, kind of like what the book's about, is that you should always be goal setting, because your brain is essentially a mechanism which likes to get from point A to point B. And as long as you goal set and visualize it, it'll work out a way. Doesn't matter how unrealistic the goal is, which I've generally found is actually pretty true. Now, I want to share with you a little bit about what Grant Cardone does and how these sort of goals have worked for me. Grant Cardone is all about the 10x movement. Whatever you aim for, whatever your goal is, add a 0 onto the end of it. Because what happens is you stretch yourself. So for instance, let's say, I am wanting to book 5 calls for my business organically by the end of the week. And I'm using this as an example because now I've got a bit of an entrepreneurial crowd. So if I was going to book 5 calls for my business by the end of the week, I would follow a particular strategy to do so, right? However, if I put a 0 on the end of that and says I want to book 50 calls by the end of the week, my brain's going to instantly be like, Rob, that's really unrealistic, how are we going to get that done? It's impossible, which might be true with the current strategy. So my brain rapidly starts to try and figure out a way to get this done. And I'm like, well, it's not going to be able to do it with the usual strategy. So what else do we have to add to the current strategy? How do we have to change it? What happens is it starts actually stretching your brain a little bit, which is exactly what this book, Cybernetics, actually talks about. It's a hunting mechanism. It will try and find a way to get things done. So if you're setting a 5-year goal for yourself, try to actually add a 0 or 10 times it, 10x it, right? So if my goal in 5 years' time is to make 1 million with my business, okay, I want to aim for 10 million. And the reason why is, as my mum always used to say, I actually think mum was quite a wise person. She used to say, if you shoot for the stars, you land on the moon. Whereas if you shoot for the moon, you might land back on Earth. And it's going to stretch your mind and open your mind up to all sorts of possibilities. Our brains, this is actually like science, our brains actually conserve so much energy. Which is why we like routines, which is why we don't like changing our opinion, which is why we, have confirmation bias and things like this, where we just look for the evidence which we already believe in. It likes to be consistent. It likes tradition and routine. So we have to understand this about ourselves. And the more we can actually understand this about ourselves, the more we can be like, sometimes what I think is right isn't actually right. And sometimes when I'm setting my goal for myself, it's actually a bit too low. So let's 10x, first of all, what our 5-year goal is. And when we set our goal, we need to think to ourselves, why are we setting this goal? Is it just to, satisfy a need in us, or is there something behind it? What's our motivation to be getting to that goal, right? Is it to actually, help other people? Is it to perhaps look really good? It doesn't really matter, it's your own goal, right? But we need kind of a reason behind it, because if your friend has turned around to you and said, hey, you should have this as your 5-year goal, that's not important to you, right? And if I've learned anything about humans, it's that we don't do things that aren't important to us. So it needs to be important to you. You need to find your why, and then we need to 10x it, and then basically work backwards. How do we, let's deconstruct this. How do we actually get that done? Because with the current strategy in 5 years' time, I'm not going to be able to get to 10 million. So the current strategy actually has to change. And we might, we need to deconstruct this, backwards engineer it. And you might find in 5 years, you get to 7.9 million and you actually miss this goal. But that's not the purpose, right? The purpose is that we way surpassed this one here because we opened up our mind and stopped being so closed-minded to things, stop limiting ourselves. We've also got Gary Keller. I've written him down here. He made a great book called The One Thing. It's a pretty easy read. I definitely recommend you read it. But basically what he says in The One Thing is that you should focus on what the one thing is. He's got a company, Keller Williams, which I think at the moment is valued at 2 billion, right? So I'm going to listen to this guy. And he says that basically in his meetings, when he used to set meetings with people, he would find that if he set 5 things to do by next week or 4 things to do by next week, people would turn up empty-handed to his meetings. And it didn't matter how experienced the person is. It could be a well-paid executive. It could be, a real high performer. It didn't really matter. He says, so what he ended up doing is getting these guys to focus on one thing that they should be doing each week. And when he says one thing, it's not quite as simple as that. He says, whenever you've got a task or you need to get something done, ask yourself, what is the one thing I should be doing that by doing it will make all other actions either unnecessary or easier. So let's say that again. What's the one thing I should be doing this week or this month or this year that by doing it will make everything else easier or unnecessary? So I'm going to give you an example of this. So for me, me and my partner, we both do different things, right? And we take it in turns to cook meals. If we don't go and eat out with friends, we take it in turns to cook meals. And what used to happen is, because I work with a lot of US clients, I'm based in England, is that I wouldn't really get any downtime. So if it was my turn to cook for the night, to cook dinner for the night, to cook tea, I would actually spend my time cooking tea. And if it wasn't my time, and she would go and watch TV while I was cooking tea, but if it wasn't my night to actually spend cooking tea, I'd be in here doing calls. So I kind of never really got any downtime. And then we'd be who's doing the washing up, who's doing the pots and everything like this. And Sam Ovens, his kind of theory on it is basically get a meal takeaway service, a healthy meal takeaway service. Unfortunately, in England, we're not as evolved as the US. We don't really have any great meal takeaway, meal prep services that you can just order that turn up with healthy food. And we have a lot of processed stuff. So what we ended up doing is on the Sunday night and on the Wednesday night each week, we get together, me and my partner, and we cook out the lunch and the dinner for the next 3 days. And basically what this is the one thing which by doing it has made everything else unnecessary or easier. So it's got rid of who's washing up tonight? It's got rid of what are we eating dinner tonight? I also go to the gym a lot. I'm either bulking or maintaining or cutting. And when I'm trying to, note in my Fitness Pal down the calories of certain meals so I can make sure I'm eating the right amount of calories for the day, it becomes a nightmare, trying to, work out, so how many calories are in this meal? We've changed all the meals for the week. So if we look at this, to be productive, You can be, I'm going to do this task here, I'm going to do this task here, I'm going to do this task here, and I'm going to do this task here, I'm going to do this task here. But what the one thing does is it allows you to actually do this task here, which makes all of these completely unnecessary. And that's exactly what we did by prepping the food. It was a great decision. It took so much off like our plate, and I can now enter my lunch and my meal time, my dinner time, meals into my planner, exactly know what I'm eating. We don't, you know, she can go and relax, watch TV. I can, if I've got calls tonight, I can do those, or I've got more free time to go and relax as well. And, you know, when we're cooking together, both of us actually love cooking. So this was it's quite a hard decision to make, but we spend that time together. We talk to each other like, oh, you know, what ingredients you got in this? And we know exactly what healthy food we're putting into ourselves as well, rather than getting like processed food. So that's a good example of where you can, you know, work out in goal setting what's the one thing you should be doing that can actually remove other things. So every single day you should be asking that to yourself. You should be setting your 5-year goals, your 3-year goals. What do you want to achieve this year? What do you want to achieve this month? All right. And then saying to yourself, what's the one thing I can do that's going to make that month easier to attain and cut like a lot of the other stuff out? What's the one thing I can do that's going to make my yearly goals, whether it's like money, whether it's like, you know, fitness, what's the one thing I can do which is going to make those goals easier to achieve? So that's how you do that. And you should be setting your goals big and to get that mechanism in your brain going, so it's a bit easier for yourself. The next step is managing oneself. Now, this is massive. So there's an amazing book. Where is it? Oh, there it is. This is called Managing Oneself, and it's by Peter Drucker. And this book was written years and years ago. And basically, this book talks about how you should perform to your strengths. And, you know, you can only build so much up on your weaknesses. Now, a good example of where this works is I tried like Sam Oven's routine quite a lot, you know, work from 8 in the morning till like 9 at night, and like just focus, and just focus on getting things done. And what I actually forgot is that during this, I wasn't managing myself. And all this is it's great advice, but I truly didn't understand my personality. It differed a little bit from Sam. So Sam is an INTJ. He's an INTJ. INTJ. And this is a Myers-Briggs test. Go and do that after this video is finished. Take your Myers-Briggs to learn about what your personality type is. It tells you a lot about yourself. I think it's like humanmetrics.com or something like that, which the test is held on. So Sam is an INTJ, and he's given this advice of focus, you know, sit at your computer, just focus on the task, get it all done. But I am an ENTJ. All right. So for me, I can't, when I try to like sit at my computer and block people out and, you know, say no to everyone and, you know, just really try and focus on getting things done, I actually started to perform way worse. And I thought it was, you know, just the training wheels just needed to keep being on for a while, but it was consistent. I actually started to try and perform way worse. And what was the reason? Well, I wasn't performing to my strengths. Me sitting at a computer and not being around people because I'm an extrovert and, you know, just focusing on like the spreadsheets and like I need to focus on the daily actions, that didn't work for me. And I think it's really good advice for a particular person, but this book talks about that you should always play to your strengths. So who did I look to who's very similar to me in terms of strengths? Well, I think probably Grant Cardone is an ENTJ as well. And I know Tai Lopez is an ENTP. So basically he's me, but just judges a lot less because he's dropped the J and it's turned to a P instead. So then I started to look at like what their daily routines were. Well, would you believe it, right? They're both ADD type people, kind of like me. They are constantly getting on the stage. They're constantly getting in front of the camera. They You know, they're fast acting, bam, 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 bam. They don't really like sitting down at a computer. They're very social. They've constantly got people around them. Not distractions. They're doing it in a focused way, like it's business relationships and things like this. And as soon as I adopted those principles, as soon as I was like, that's what I'm missing, like everything started to really change, right? And this is all comes down to managing myself. Now, I'm not being more distracted, you know, doing their routines as I am sitting in a room just trying to type things out. Both Sam's, Grant's, and Ty's stuff is very, very effective, but it's person dependent, and you must manage your strengths. How do you know what your strengths are? First of all, I'd say take personality tests. Go over to Myers-Briggs. You can take a Myers-Briggs test, work out, you know, what it says as well. You've got another one that Ty recommends is called Hexaco. Great personality test there. I scored, if you're an entrepreneur, you want to be scoring very high in conscientiousness. And if you are you know, I actually scored very high in being a sincere person as well. So I noticed one of my strengths as well. I didn't know it was a strength. One of my strengths is actually like calling the BS on other people. You know, I had a competitor who he's doing like 7 figures a year, and he copied all of like my content. But what annoyed me is that this guy markets himself as like being really authentic. So this actually really annoyed me, and I could never work out why this annoyed me so much. But it turns out that one of my strengths is being really sincere. So talking about things like this, cutting through the BS in the market, getting on camera, my extrovert side, talking about things like, no, this is what actually works. No, this is the real way to do it. Showing people, demonstrating people, and actually voicing my opinion are all within my strengths. And it turns out, like, I've had a lot of messages off my YouTube channel that people like it too, right? And if I was to say, you know, sit in a room all day, don't get anything done, people probably wouldn't really like that type of content. So it's very important that you understand yourself and manage yourself. So that is part 2. What one thing works for one person doesn't work for other people. You must understand this, because you'll be stuck in a rut and your results will go down until you understand that, you know, you need to work with yourself. We're all different people, right? Number 3, discipline versus motivation. Now, Sam Ovens is very much like, if you're not focused, you're not disciplined, you need discipline, there's no such thing as motivation, it's a lie. And Tai Lopez is like, discipline's needed as well, but we have to understand what motivates us. Now, both have really good points in each different areas, and I am basically a human guinea pig, and I will try things for, you know, like a certain amount of time to see what actually works for me. Again, managing yourself, you have to test. It's very hard to understand what actually works for you unless you test. You can't just theorize in your head. Theoretically, I could sit down at my computer all day and get loads and loads of work done, but in practice, in the real world, I actually get less done and less results unless I start, you know, speaking on video, unless I start like performing for the crowd, doing meetings, speaking with people, forming business relationships. All right. So discipline is definitely needed, and in an unfocused world with so many like dopamine, you know, dopamine sucking things, so many notifications going off on your phone, we do need to take some advice from Sam here and get rid of notifications. You know, get rid of all these distractions, to cut the fat from your life and really focus on what's important. So absolutely correct there. However, as well, Tai Lopez, motivation. He talks about, this is completely his advice here, so I don't want to take any credit for this, but he talks about people are motivated in 4 ways, and that comes down to 4 M's. He says, first of all, some people are motivated by money. Self-explanatory. Some people chase money. That is what motivates them. Some other people are motivated by mastery, which is being the best at what they do. These guys usually like competition, and they, you know, they work well by trying to win. Some other people are motivated by movement, which is freedom, living a life free, traveling, going seeing other places, meeting people in different locations. So we got money, mastery, movement, and mating. Now, because ultimately we're animals, right? Arnold Schwarzenegger was very much motivated by mating. He did pretty much all of his things, in his early career because he wanted to impress women. That was literally it, right? And there's nothing wrong with that because he knew that, right? But mating can also be social relationships, relationships with friends, relationships with your family, relationships with, obviously like the opposite sex or, whoever you're trying to date, whatever, right? So each type of people fall into each type of motivations. And again, credit to Tai Lopez, he's the one who taught me this. I thought, when I upped my money goals, I actually didn't work any better, right? I didn't feel any more motivated. And I was like, that's strange. When I started looking at places I could go to, and travel to, yeah, all right, it's a nice break, it's a nice holiday, but it didn't actually really motivate me. Like, I want to go and work from this city, right? When I started to, work for, I've already got a partner, but when I started to I want to increase business relationships, I do like that a little bit, but it's not the main thing, right? These are all about 60% for me, if we're filling them up, they're all about 60%, but what is 100% is mastery. I love to basically work, be the best at what I do. And if you look into your history, you will have lots of evidence of being really focused on one of these. So my evidence is I worked at a charity, right? No money reward there, they didn't get any commission or anything. And I really wanted to be the best in my team in terms of team targets, right? Which was at the time help the most people on the phone. Then I moved to another team, and once again, I wanted to be recognized as the best. And then before that, I used to work in the hospitality sector. I used to work in a restaurant, a bar, right? And I always wanted to make sure I got the best results on my shift and things like this, because I was managing a team. And this is what has always shone through mastery for me. Whereas my accountability buddy, we get together every single week, and he's he was trying to find his, and I said to him, listen, dude, every time I talk to you, you tell me that you travel, you're going to France one week, you're going to Mexico another, you're going to, travel to this other country to go and actually meet these people. I was this was it as well. This was a massive clue. He said, he was you can't believe it. I went on holiday. I think he went to the Maldives. He was I went on holiday to the Maldives. He was I've had a bit of a dry spell in my business recently, no new business. He's got recurring revenue, but no new business. And he says, as soon as I went on holiday, I closed 3 deals over the phone, and I added an extra 8K to my business per month. And I was dude, you work the best when you're moving, when you're in the freedom stage, right? I produce tremendous results when I'm I can't believe this guy who preaches authenticity is copying all my stuff. He thinks he's better than me, right? And this is just some of these things to look into. They might not seem good on the surface when you admit them to yourself, but this comes down to really managing oneself. So you should, if you can get a combination of discipline, being super focused on the right things, and understanding what is driving you, the force which is driving you, and also managing yourself while setting appropriate goals, you're getting good. So we have lastly number 4 here, which is routines. Now, I've been in a lot of entrepreneur communities, and people seem to be obsessed with tactics and routines. And routines do kind of come down to bits of tactics, right? And but they have a tendency to ignore the strategy. And this is the same in anything, I work a lot on LinkedIn. I help entrepreneurs book calls through LinkedIn and book business through LinkedIn. And one of the main things that people message me is Rob, what's the best message to send to a person? And that's again a tactic and is well placed in in certain situations, But ultimately, you could be sending this best message to people. But if you don't understand the core foundations and the strategy behind why people work and what's working and like the psychology behind it, it's not really going to go anywhere. It's not going to benefit you long term. So the point I'm saying this is I've added routines in here because it's got a place, and I'm going to talk through that right now. But the overall strategy, the overarching strategy, is what really controls the success as well. So for instance, some people, they like to get up at 4 in the morning. You look at like Jocko Willink, the ex-Navy SEAL. I think he was he was Navy SEAL, yeah. You know, he's built a massive successful routine by getting up at 4 a.m. every morning, being like the early bird. Whereas Jeff Bezos, and that works for him, you know, he's a multimillionaire. And Jeff Bezos, like, he has breakfast with his kids and he's reading a newspaper at 7:30 in the morning. He doesn't meditate or anything like that, and he's the richest dude on earth. Right, so routines work differently for different people. I'll tell you a little bit about what my routine is. At the moment, it changes. I make sure I go to the gym 5 to 6 times a week. All right, if I can't make it because of like work obligations or something, I will try and, you know, I'll be out, I'll be getting active somewhere, right? Particularly at the moment, whilst one of my goals is to, you know, drop over a stone to achieve the right level of body fat so I look a bit better, right? So that is like one of the, you know, most important things for me. And the reason why I have the gym as well, in the mornings I tend to go, is because I have loads of energy. I have extroverted energy. I'm a little bit ADD, right? And if I can go to the gym and work it out of me a little bit, I end up actually being a bit more focused for the day. I've noticed compared to days where I don't do that. Like, I need it. I've been trained. I'm in my early 30s at the moment. I've been training since I was, you know, I used to go to karate when I was 7 years old till 13. I used to go to boxing then. You know, and then I used to be in the gym as well and go running nightly when I was in boxing. I also used to, you know, I used to do MMA as well. Then I used to do Muay Thai kickboxing as well. And, you know, over the last 2 years, I've been massive in like the gym as well. So like, I need it. It's part of my routine. It's like how I stay focused, right? So that comes down to managing myself again. So I generally will go to the gym. I need to, even though I think as well, let's talk about sleep, even though I think I'm a bit of a night owl, because I have a history of doing it. I have an Oura ring here, which tracks your sleep. It's probably like one of the most accurate things, accurate measures without like actual lab studies to show how well you're sleeping. But my Oura ring says, even though I think to myself, you know, I get better, you know, I'm a night owl, I like to stay up late, my Oura ring actually tells me that I sleep way worse if I stay up late. And the appropriate time for me to be going to bed is around about 10 p.m. Even though I absolutely hate going to bed at 10 p.m, right? I go to bed at 10 p.m, you know, maybe wind down between 9 and 10, stop working. If I'm working late, I'll stop working at like 9, wind down at like 10, and try to get to, you know, pretty much lights off like by 10:05. I hate doing that, but the data on my Oura ring shows that I recover massively, and the reason why is because my body wakes me up at 6:30 or 7 in the morning. It's just like, boom, right awake. And when I start going to bed at 1:30, which I prefer, then, you know, like, I still wake up at 6:30. And when I do that for a few nights in a row, I'm like, oh, I haven't really got any energy today. I haven't really got any energy. I haven't really got any motivation. I haven't got any execution. I haven't got any high performance in me. And the reason why is I'm just too tired, right? So that's sleep as well. Diet. I'm adding this into routines, is huge. Diet affects your mood. If I'm sleeping badly, if I'm eating loads of processed food every day, if I'm not eating, you know, leafy green vegetables, which are high in vitamin A, vitamin C, vitamin E as well, and K, like, I'm like, my brain's friggin', it's just not in a good place, right? So, I generally make sure I get like enough protein, and I eat like non-processed foods throughout the day. I have a little bit sometimes, sometimes like that is the nicest tasting food and you do need to have it, but like generally I'll stay away from it. And the reason why is because it's hard to actually work, it's hard to actually perform at a high level. And there's no coincidence that when I go on a cut and I need to actually lose calories and lose some weight, and I'm very, very restrictive about like my diet and things like this, and I don't have any processed food like at all, there's no coincidence that I actually produce like the best work that I ever really do, right? At those particular times of year. Like I've tracked it, it's the same. Okay, so we've covered sleep, we've covered diet. Let's talk about getting up in the morning. So I will generally get up and pretty much first thing I'll be heading to the gym. I used to meditate. I do meditate, in fact. Like I've meditated for, probably over like 12 years at this point, but I try it on and off. I do find that if I have to go through times of working problems out and actually sitting down to think and really getting deep with the thinking as well, I find that like meditating really helps there, and doing that for 20 minutes a day in periods like that, it works really well. However, I find it takes the edge off me a little bit when I need to be more aggressive, I need to be motivated, I need to be really driving forward when I meditate as well. That might be just me. I know Sam recommends to meditate all the time. I know Grant never meditates all the time. And, I saw a recent interview with Grant for a small time YouTube creator, and Grant was saying that his personal net worth now is past $1 billion. So he's made over $1 billion and he manages like $4 billion worth of real estate as well. So like basically, if you want to make $1 million, like either way works, right? So it's true for both. Like there's examples on either side where it works for and where it doesn't. Again, it comes down to managing yourself. So at the moment, I'm not meditating because I've got lots and lots of work to do. The best thing for me to do as well is to put my phone in a completely different room. I find that if I have my phone next to me, no matter how disciplined I think I am, I will do a task and then I'll get this like weird itch to just look at my phone or to check like messages or to check my emails on my phone. It's a bit more accessible and easier to access on my phone than opening a different tab up, going to Gmail. So I find that I have to put it in a different room. I get exponentially better, more work done when I do that as well. So routines as well. I try and cover Tai Lopez's like thoughts in the day as well, which is health, wealth, love, and happiness. I try and make sure I go to the gym, I go out for a walk, whatever. I try and make sure for wealth, I'm spending the majority of the day trying to build my wealth because the others come easier with that as well. So I'm doing activities like making videos like this. I'm doing activities like, getting my name out there more, meeting new people in my niche, prospecting, making content, things like that. Health, wealth, love. Love, I've already got a partner, right? Make sure I spend time with her as well. Love as well falls into like relationships. So I'll make sure I'll call my family every few days. I'll make sure I'm messaging my friends, keeping up to date, seeing if we can get some sort of event going together, or, whether we are going to go out, whether we're going to go out, go for a coffee or whatever. Happiness as well. I find that if you start to get all those right and you start working on your purpose, you start working towards your goals, you really know yourself, happiness is kind of like a byproduct. It comes, right? It comes with the process. I'm generally quite a happy guy most of the time. So that's health, wealth, love, and happiness. Let's talk about alcohol as well. I do drink. I don't drink that much though. I never really have. Don't get me wrong. There's sometimes I will not see particularly during the pandemic, there's times where I've not seen my good friends for 6, 12 months, like everyone else on the globe, right? And when we meet up, boy, you better believe we're drinking. Now, I know it's gonna drastically affect my performance if I drink on the Friday or the Saturday, my performance, it doesn't just affect the next day, it pretty much affects like the Sunday, the Monday, the Tuesday, the Wednesday, the Thursday. By Friday, I'm starting to feel a little bit better. Like drinking absolutely destroys you. I don't know whether it destroys you as much when you're younger, or if you just happen to notice it more when you're older, and you notice when your health's down a little bit. But like, sure, drink when you are having, time off, or you can plan it on, or you haven't got an important week coming up. But you better believe that your brain isn't going to be as sharp the next week for the majority of the next week, right? You'll get the tiredness that comes, this really weird tiredness. It doesn't matter how much that you sleep. You get this tiredness which just hangs around as well. On my Oura Ring, the great thing is I can see that the nights where I've drank, my sleep quality, even though I might have slept for longer than I'd usually sleep, my sleep quality is like poor. My heart rate's up by like 10 beats per minute. When I sleep at night, my heart rate's generally around like the 45 to 50 beats per night, right? It's quite low at night. But I found that like it'll go up to 60 if I've drank alcohol. So my heart's working just a little bit harder to get that out of my body. So that's something you want to avoid if you want proper sleep, if you want to get more done. By all means, catch up with your friends. Don't be so rigid. And I tried to follow the route as well, where I was like really rigid. And basically what happened there, well, it drained my happiness. You don't want to be too rigid in life. Just follow the situations. Try what works for you as well. In terms of like eating, you should be eating 3 meals a day if you can. But make sure that you don't eat like 2 to 3 hours before bed. If you do, it's only like a tiny snack. Again, Aura has told me that I've got the data to prove it, that basically if you are eating 3 hours before bed, like your heart rate is like all over the place, right? It's all over the place. And it increases your heart rate as well. So we covered diet, we covered health, love and happiness, we covered meditation, we covered gym workouts as well. I would plan your day. I'd plan your day the night before. This is actually I generally tend to plan my days like as I go through the week. Like I'll be like, oh, this appointment's on Thursday. But what happens is I can open up I generally know when I get up in the morning, like what few things I've got to work on today. I know that I'm going to be, potentially prospecting. I know I'm going to be creating content, and I know I'm going to be potentially making a video. But I also know that if I plan my days the night before I go to bed, like this is actually proven if you read the book, Why We Sleep by Matthew Walker, I think it is, or watch the Joe Rogan podcast with Matthew Walker. He talks about like your brain is a problem-solving mechanism. And if you have a problem to solve before you go to sleep, this is why generally you can go to bed and you can suddenly wake up all refreshed, and you'll have like an answer to your problem, or like a new creative thought. And the reason why is because, like a computer, your brain will work on problems whilst you sleep, like in its subconscious. So say you search for a file on your computer, you hit enter, then you turn the computer off, you actually go to sleep. And then you wake up the next morning, or you put your computer on sleep. You wake up the next morning, you open your computer up, it's actually found that file, it's found it throughout the night, and it gets creative thoughts, which is why scientifically you should be noting down what you need to do the next day. Even if it's just 1 to 3 things, thinking back to Gary Keller on your goal setting, what's the one thing I should do today or tomorrow which is going to move the needle forward for my finances, which is going to move the needle forward for booking calls, which is going to move the needle forward for my health, that if I do it, it will make everything else unnecessary or everything else easier. Get it done, right? And I think that's generally it. So I have my to-do list. Making sure I'm focusing on health, love and happiness, making sure I'm focusing on meditation. I think that's enough for this video. There's plenty there to keep you going. Drop me a comment in the section below if you found this helpful as well. And also, if you're new to this channel, please subscribe, and you like kind of entrepreneurial content, you like following Grant Cardone, you like following Tai Lopez, you like learning from like Sam Ovens, follow this channel, because I tell you what, like, I've been around these guys like a kind of a long time now, and I know a trick or two about it, and like through my years in entrepreneurship, I've grown as a person as well. And if I can help, my goal is to like help 1 million other people become better at what they do. And if I can even just help one extra person, I'll feel good about it, right? So thank you for watching. I hope this was really helpful for you. Leave me a little comment below, leave me a like if you want, and see you in the next one. Take care.